Welcome! Today I'm very happy because I'm presenting to you the first expansion to one of my favorite games out there that was recently fulfilled from crowdfunding, and this is Pest. Pest is hitting crowdfunding as we speak with its first expansion and its second edition with some updates. I have taken a separate video to show all these updates and also the unboxing of the prototype of the first expansion called Guilds of Thokaia. And I'm really excited because this expansion offers two new modules, two separate different modules that you play either separately or combine when you're playing sessions with Pest. For those of you who haven't heard about Pest, I'm surprised, but in any case, it's a very interesting, relatively new, great game with a lot of interesting worker placement on the grid, where players take very great actions and great plans on a huge map, trying to restore the empire back to its feet, after the devastating effects of a plague. And we're playing as plague doctors, essentially. Now, if you haven't heard anything about Pest, I have recently made also the unboxing video where you can find how the game looks like. I have a very detailed how to play game review actually from the first crowdfunding campaign where I explained the game. I'm going to follow with more content on the game, but let me focus now on the campaign, on the expansion and Guilds of Thokaia. Guilds of Thokaia, it's a new expansion that has, as I said, two modules, the Guildhall and the Mutagens. They're both very different, very unique, and they both add layers of strategy and gameplay, both in terms of things you do actually on the game board and the overall experience and feel on the core game of Pest. So if you like or love, I should say, Pest, and you're like me, you should definitely check this out. If you haven't heard anything about Pest, I think this is a great opportunity to find out more about the game. It's actually still for a few more days on crowdfunding, and why not also gain the full experience with the added expansion and what it offers. Now, each of the modules has a unique character, and this is something very interesting and has a lot of value to what the expansion offers. I'm going to briefly show how each of those plays. I have a preview prototype, which is very advanced, and I have used the components to play both modules with Pest. So I'm going to share at the end of this video my final opinion about the first expansion and what it offers. Spoilers, I really liked it and I enjoyed it. Actually, I loved it. I think I would never play Pest without the expansion moving forward. Maybe not with both of the modules. Maybe so. I don't know. Could, depending on the mixed gaming group I'm playing with, but definitely with one of the two modules on each of my next subsequent plays of Pest. It's really that good. So Pest Guildhall offers, from the Guildhall of Thokaia, offers a lot of interesting, powerful cards and combos, and a lot of antagonizing with other players in the Guildhall main board, trying to get the different chairs and place your envoys as further up as possible so that you can gain more options and access to more chairs, and you can populate the 5 different guilds and gain really the ability to play some very powerful and useful Guildhall cards, which have a huge impact on the game, and you should be looking forward for that, but also to gain renown at the end of the game from the positioning of your envoys and more. This is really interesting. It gives a very strong twist to the game. The other separate, independent, but you can combine both module, which is called Mutagens, really focuses on clusters of plague. Actually, you have different strains. For the first time, we introduced different strains of the plague disease, and this typically bursts in really high populated areas like cities. So from there, they can really create a problem, because when during the pest phase, you get one cluster each time on one of the cities bombed, and then you get one sick person there and one sick person in all of the adjacent connected locations. So it feels more like a rapid expansion from the heavily populated city centers, as you would expect in reality, as it happens in reality. So both of them very interesting. Join me at the table. I'll show you how the game with the modules work in both of the cases, the components and the rules and the scoring, and we'll come back at the end of this preview video for my final opinion and my first impressions from the modules with Pest. The lands lay desolate all across Thokaia, horses, carts, hearses, brick, mortar, lumber, molded food beaten all across, and the scents and stench stuck to the walls of half-crumbled homes, and bodies is there. The bodies of the sick and unfortunate stern on there all around in each road, forever stamped to the soul of each street to remind and never forget, death found us and it took no mercy. But that was some time ago, and the lands have not since stayed stagnant. The pestilence slowed and we hastened. Out of the rumble, Thokaia was slowly rebuilt. A great many minds have gathered slow, stepped forward with a reformed faith, and now thrust into the new world, ready to remake, redo and retry their hand at stability and prosperity. Welcome to the Guilds of Thokaia. With help of the 5 guilds, all new guild cards and strain of disease previously unseen in its ferocious spread, get ready to show now that the world has a lot of problems, but you have what it takes for it to survive. The onslaught of pest must be stopped, and we must thrive in it. The Guilds of Thokaia Pest expansion includes 2 separate modules, the Guildhall module and the Mutagens module. Both of these broaden Pest in terms of mechanics and in terms of narrative. As you enter a whole new age and a whole new way of approaching the all-encompassing pestilence, more opportunities will open up. With Guildhall, prepare to prove your worth in the Thokaian guilds through a whole new separate board, and in that play with a whole new deck of abilities, rewards that enhance your already familiar Pest gameplay and much more. On the other hand, with the Mutagens, prepare to endure an onslaught of sickness and to give yourself to research necessary to study and cure and endure the strain of disease. Guildhall. Welcome, envoys, to the Guildhall. Following a turbulent period in the lives and countless deaths of Thokaia's contemporary history, we have finally entered a state of peace and tranquility. And what better time could be there than to now restore some order. Enter the 5 guilds. We have inventors, healers, diplomats, craftsmen and architects. Send over your brightest envoys. The time from prosperity is here. Let's familiarize ourselves with the components of the first of the 2 modules so that they come into the expansion of Pest, which we're really looking forward to, which is, of course, the Guilds of Thokaia. It has also the focus of the first of the 2 modules. So, the things that we see, I have separated here what we have for the first module, focus later on the second module, the Mutagens. So we have a series of guild cards, all these cards here which have great abilities, and they are the focus of this expansion, this module. There are 9 per guild, okay? So have 5 guilds in total, inventors, healers, diplomats, craftsmen and architects, and each guild has 9 cards for a total of 45. Maybe we can quickly just show you some of those cards. I've made a separate prototype unboxing. They look gorgeous. You see that they belong to, for example, the Inventor Guild because they have the Inventor icon. Okay, beautiful art. Then you have cards from the Diplomat Guild, cards from the Builders Guild with their respective icon, guild cards from the Healers Guild, and this is their icon. And last but not least, we have Craftsman's Guild with a respective icon, as you can see here. Great. So 9 times 5 for a total of 45 guild cards. The next thing that we have in this module are 5 envoys, 1 per player color. They look gorgeous like that. For some reason I got 5 in each color, but you just need 1 because actually you need 5. The description is incorrect. You need 5, 1 for each guild. So each player, they're going to take one of those envoys and they're going to start them on the space 0 around the specific Guildhall board, which is a separate board that sits aside. Okay, and they're going to start on this track. As you progress, you're going to be moving on tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or hopefully even become a guild master for this specific guild. Okay, in this case, the Healers Guild, because you have the main icon in the end. Only 1 player can become a guild master for each specific guild, but all of the players are going to start around the Guildhall at number 0, as we're going to explain later on, with their respective envoy. So it's a total of indeed 5 envoys per player color. As I already mentioned, we have the the Guildhall main board, which is this one and sits next to the main board. This is how the setup is going to look after we place our envoys on each of the tier 0 slot next to each guild at the beginning of their position. More on that later. The next thing we have is 75 seed tokens. There are these here. They're just tokens that they have the icon of the respective guild. Okay, and we have a number of those, so players can earn them in order to be able to use them to pay for playing guild cards from their hand, as we'll see later on. So this is all you have for the components of the Guildhall expansion. Setup is fairly easy. You place the Guildhall board near the map board. You place one of your envoys on each space containing the number 0. You should have a total of 5 envoys on the board, 1 for each guild. You shuffle and place the deck of guild cards near the Guildhall, and after that you would be able to begin. This is the Guildhall. Let me just zoom in so that you can see the Guildhall cards. Just make sure that you give them a very good shuffle, because you don't want to have, you know, several cards of the same guild one after the other. Okay, so these need to be shuffled very thoroughly. Okay, once you do shuffle them, then you create a guild deck and you place it next to the board, preferably next to the Guildhall board or wherever you have space around your table. Now let's talk about the main concepts of this module. For the Guildhall represents the gathering place for the 5 major guilds of Thokaia. Here, guild representatives conduct meetings where they coordinate, discuss and concur upon the ever-evolving state of the world, and what piece of it may be ample for their upcoming ventures, of course. In addition to the capital city, you can assign healthy people in the Guildhall. It is divided into 5 segments, each of which represents the 5 guilds, again inventors, healers, diplomats, craftsmen and architects. Within these segments there is a hierarchy of power displayed and divided into 4 tiers. These are depicted by the numbers you see. You have tier 0, tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3. With the exception of tier 0, each tier has a fixed number of seats reserved for their representatives. 4 seats in tier 1, 3 in tier 2, 2 in tier 3, and finally there is only 1 chair, termed with the guildmaster terminology, which is reserved for the singular player envoy, which is highlighted, as you can see, with yellow around the exact center. So 0, 1, 2, 3 and the guildmaster chair. Players start with 1 envoy for each guild placed in the tier 0 slot on the guild tier track. This is a track of numbers going from 0 to 3. These envoys act as your agents in the Guildhall. They're of course your main method of progressing through the guild's rankings. So moving your envoy. During your turn you can spend 3 influence to move your envoy to the next tier. So I can spend 3 influence on the yellow player to go from tier 0 to tier 1. Okay, this is independent with the chairs that you have within the section of the Guildhall. We're talking about the envoy, okay, which shows your access to the different tiers, essentially. Doing so grants you a seed token from that guild. That means for this specific one, the healers, since the yellow player progressed, they're going to gain one of those respective tokens. I'm just placing it here for the moment. Okay, I'm keeping it next to my player board, of course. And what that does is it improves your guild standing, which unlocks new available chairs and improves your end game scoring. Because as you can see now, your envoy is sitting next to a portion of the Guildhall which has 1, 2, 3, 4 chairs. Okay, and you have access to those, of course. And of course it will improve your game scoring at the end. Assigning people to Guildhall. Remember, we have the assign action in your personal player board in the grid where you play your actions during the action phase. When you play the assign action, you may assign healthy people from your player board to the stands tier 0 or to an empty seat, meaning tiers from 1 to 3, within the tier level of your envoy. You can only assign one healthy person to each guild per turn, and for each healthy person a player assigns to the Guildhall, they gain 1 influence and draw 1 card from the guild deck. Okay, for each healthy person you assign 1 influence plus 1 guild card. Just keep in mind that the guild cards that you draw, you just keep them in your hand as available. You don't have them, you haven't played them, so you're not benefiting them. You need to be able to pay for them to play them and gain the benefit. Okay? They're very powerful cards. This is what actually the module is all about. Now, talking about seats, each guild has a reserved and exclusive number of seats. When you assign a healthy person to an empty one, tiers 1 to 3, you gain 1 of the guild's seat tokens, and these seat tokens are requirements needed to play guild cards. So through the course of the game, we're going to have envoys of players moving up on different tiers among the 5 guilds in the Guildhall board, and you're going to have healthy people sent there from the players with the assign action up to the tiers, the chairs that you have access to with your envoy marker respectively. So let's say fast forward in the future, this is a possible scenario on how the Guildhall board can look in advanced well within the game, where players have progressed their envoys and they have also sent healthy people into their respective guilds that they have interest of course, for taking advantage for its benefits. The guild cards are the main focus of the module. There are a total of 45 guild cards in this module, 9 for each guild, with some required seat tokens. So for example, you see here the anatomy of a typical guild card. You have the card name, this is Financial Advisor. Below you can see the guild affiliation. This guild is affiliated, this card is affiliated to the Diplomats Guild. You can also see the icon of the guild on top here. Below you have the number of seat tokens required, in this case 1. Okay, and here you have the card ability and the card number. This number represents the number of seat tokens that is required in a given Guildhall. You need to have gathered it in order to be able to play the card. Okay, so you need to have those in order to be able to play the card from your hand next to your player board, so that you can gather the powerful benefit that the card gives. So playing a guild card. During your turn, if you have gathered the appropriate number of tokens, you may play a guild card as a free action. You resolve the action immediately and place it near your player board. The card is now inactive and cannot be played again. They can be kept for potential endgame scoring, and you may play as many guild cards as you want, as long as you have the required number of seat tokens. Additionally, as a free action, you may discard 2 guild cards from your hand to draw another card from the guild deck. At the end of your turn, you must discard guild cards until you have no more than 3 in your hand. Keep in mind that when you play a guild card, the seat tokens required by the card, the ones that you needed to play the card, they are not spent. They're simply kept next to your player board as your permanent token pool, and you can use these tokens to pay other guild cards on your future turn. So it makes it easier and easier to get more guild cards. Guild cards are always primarily affiliated with one guild. They have their affiliation depicted on the back of each card, beneath actually the title, I would say, not at the back. And although sometimes cards may require additional tokens from other guilds, each card always has a primary guild affiliation. Okay, so in this case, you see that you need to pay 1 from the affiliated Diplomats Guild plus 1 from the Healers Guild. Once you pay those by just showing them next to your player board, you don't spend them, you are able to play this specific card and activate its powerful ability. The Guild Master. The Guild Master, and maybe I should zoom in the Guild Master on the Guildhall board. Now that's better. Over here we have already, as you can see, 1 Guild Master in the Builders Guild over here. So if you have reached the 3rd tier of a guild with your envoy, you may advance your envoy to the guild's final guild track space. This makes you a guild master of that guild. Keep in mind that only 1 envoy can enter in the center and become a guild master of that guild. This makes your guild master of that guild and awards you renown for your dedication to the guild at the end of the game for endgame scoring. Only 1 player, as I said, can have their envoy claim the guild master space of each guild. How the in-game scoring works with this module. At the end of era 3, you score the following. You gain 1 renown for each seed token you own, and additional renown for each of your envoys on the Guildhall tracks. You gain 1 renown for each envoy on tier 1, 3 renown for each envoy on tier 2, and 5 renown for each envoy on tier 3. So basically, by progressing, you're going to get a lot of victory points, depending on when your envoys are standing for each of the guilds around the Guildhall board. Also, if you have reached the position of the guild master, like in this case the red player for the Builders Guild, you gain renown for each guild card associated with the guild you own and you have. So it gives you extra chances for gaining renown. So there you have it. This is how the Guildhall module works. Very interesting. A lot of things going on here. You can utilize the assign action in different ways. You can gain benefit from the powerful Guildhall cards, and you have different things to compete with other players and open up a whole new layer of strategy and player interaction within Pest, which I found it very interesting. So this is all about the first module, Guildhall. The second module is called Mutagens. We have different components. We have one cluster board. You see here the cluster board. We have one active strain marker. This is the active strain marker, and it moves from one strain to the next one and then circles back at the top, the first one here, through the course of the game. We have 10 city tiles. You see them here for the different cities. They have their name and their production icon so that you can easily identify them. And these are tiles. We have 3 green strain clusters, 3 gray strain clusters, and 3 red strain clusters. These are corresponding to the icon on the top of each of the columns within the cluster board. Finally, we have 2 capital city clusters, which we cannot eradicate, but they have the capital city icon. And for those we have 2. So for the theme of the Mutagens module, where were you when the pestilence evolved? Were you resting comfortably in your home? Were you having supper with your family, loved ones? How many did you lose? How many remained? How many remained? And how many stayed? Tell me, did you think the worst was over? Well, let me use this as a reminder so you may never forget again. The worst is yet to come. The disease has spread. Through the vice of mingle and impulse, the sickness has spread, grown, multiplied, and evolved. Villages are ravaged. Towns panic in fear and uncertainty. And the world cities, they are the heart of the disease. On the brink of devastation, the houses and their entrusted plague doctors, frenzied and frantic to cure and contain what remains. In some hopeful glint, an end to decay and desperation. But know it, and know it well. The infected heart has no remedy. We wish you way more than luck to succeed. So the setup of this module is very easy. You place the cluster board near the map board and you set the green strain cluster tokens, yellow, gray cluster tokens and red cluster tokens on the cluster board on the respective slot here. So the green are going to take 1 spot on each of the green boxes, the gray the same, and the red the same. Okay, so it will look something like that. Once you've done that and you placed the cluster tokens on the cluster board, the next thing is we take the 2 capital city cluster tokens and we place them next to the cluster board. We're going to use them later. And the next thing we do is we set the active strain marker on the green. This is the active strain marker, the circle, the ring I should say. We set it on the green strain marker on the leftmost column. We shuffle the city tiles. These are the city tiles. So okay, we need to put them face down, and once we have them face down, we will need to shuffle them and mix them and make a pool. Okay, and once we've done that, we keep them as a pool next or below the cluster board. Now Let's see the concepts. We have the clusters. Clusters represent concentrated nodes of infection that appear in highly populated areas, namely cities. Due to the increasing number of sick people in one place, an allocation of clusters causes the disease to spread at a rapid rate, increasing the number of sick people in neighboring settlements. These clusters are represented in 3 different kinds of strains, as seen on the cluster board: the green strain, the grey strain, and the red strain. The cluster board represents 3 different kinds of strains containing the cities affected by these clusters and determines which strain will activate next. During the first pest phase and at the start of year 1, you draw 3 cluster city tiles and place them on top row on the cluster board, face up, starting from left and going to the right. Starting from year 2, during each subsequent pest phase, you draw and add 2 cluster city tiles to the next row, and then when drawing new cluster city tiles, you always place the tiles from left to right, continuing to the next row, and in this way until all spaces are filled. Each time a cluster city tile is revealed and placed on a space on the cluster board, you take the strain cluster token that it replaces on the spot and you place it on the map board on the corresponding city location. This is done throughout the game until all spaces of the cluster board have been filled with clusters city tokens. Okay, so through the course of the game, as I mentioned, I'm going to start with 2, so I'm going to draw, for example, we have Guildhall here. Okay, so I'm going to find Guildhall city and place a cluster of green strain on the map, and I'm going to take the second city tile. We have Hadir, place it here, and take the grey strain and place it on the respective city on the main board. Actually on the map, that is. How this translates on the map: for Guildhall, I'm going to take the green strain as indicated there and place it here. That means I have a green strain cluster on Guildhall at the moment. And for the second city, Hadir, I'm going to take the grey strain and place it on the city for the respective second cluster placement during the beginning of the game. The cluster phase. At the beginning of each round, before the first player takes their turn, the clusters from the currently activated cluster, as indicated by the active strain marker, this one, are triggered on the map board. On each cluster from the active strain, you place 1 sick person on its corresponding city, as well as on all locations adjacent to it connected via roads. Afterwards, you move the active strain marker to the next strain, 1 space to the right. If the active strain is ever on the 3rd and final cluster column and has to move again, then it will move back on the 1st column after triggering. Contain, eradicate, and shift. You contain a cluster. If you place your containment camp on a location with a cluster, this cluster is temporarily inactive and does not spread sick people. You eradicate a cluster. If you take the research action while your plague doctor is on the same location as the cluster, you can spend 2 research tokens in order to eradicate it, removing it from the map and placing it near your board since it's your achievement and you keep it. You cannot eradicate a cluster and obtain a technology card as part of the same research action. You need to choose what you need to do with your research action. At the end of the game, you will gain renown based on the number of clusters you have eradicated. Shift the strains. As a free action, you may spend 1 research token in order to shift the active strain marker, moving it to the subsequent strain column to the right. Eradicating a cluster with 2 plague doctors. This is a variant. If your plague doctor and another player's plague doctor are on the same location containing a cluster token, you may both agree to eradicate the cluster together, and doing so grants each player 3 influence. What about the final clusters? We have the capital city clusters here. We have the cluster board, and then we're going to move from the known strains to the capital city clusters. By the end of Era 2, all 9 spaces of the cluster board, all these tokens, are going to be placed on the cities on the board, and potentially some of them may be eradicated and gained by players. Starting with Era 3, during the pest phase, a capital city cluster token is placed on the capital city at the start of year 4 and year 5. These are the 2 capital city clusters that you find here. These are going to go on the center of the map on the capital city location. These clusters have no strain affiliation and trigger at the beginning of each round. They trigger in addition to the remaining cluster board clusters and spread the sick person on all locations adjacent to the capital city itself. During year 5, the capital city contains one cluster, and therefore one sick person is going to spread to all adjacent locations. And likewise, during year 6, the capital city contains two clusters, two capital city clusters, and therefore 2 sick people are going to be spread on all adjacent locations to the capital city. How the game is scored with the mutagen module. At the end of the game, you count the number of clusters you have eradicated and gathered. For each one, you gain the following amount of renown. You gain, if you have eradicated one cluster, meaning you eradicated, let's say, the Gothar cluster, okay, and you have kept it next to your player board as your own, that means you're going to gain 3 renown. So, 1 cluster, 3 renown, 2 clusters, 6 renown, 3 clusters, 10, 4 clusters, 15, 5 clusters 21, 6 clusters 28, 7 clusters 36, 8 clusters 45, and if you're the only player playing with eradicating clusters in this game session, you're going to have eradicated all 9 clusters that are possible to eradicate. Again, you cannot eradicate capital city clusters, you can only eradicate the main strains. Eradicating 9 clusters awards a player 55 renown victory points. So there you have it. This is how the mutagens module plays and scores. Now you know everything you need to know for both modules. I really stand by what I have said. I'm never going to play Pest without any of the 2 modules in the mix. Maybe both of them in some cases, but definitely at least one of them. And the reason for that is, don't get me wrong, I really already enjoy Pest as it is, as a core game. It's a fantastic game with a lot of depth, a lot of things to do. It has the map and the moving around the map and trying to build your buildings and get them on the board so that you can have better economy, and the action selection, the action worker placement actually within the grid, where you have a combo with the coordinates of the 2 actions is really interesting. The quarantine is very interesting. It has so many cool ideas. Sincerely, every player, every friend, every person I've known that they have played Pest and tried it, they really had a very positive impression, if not loving the game already, as it is from the core game. And I'm within this group, and I really was excited when I found out about this game way back, and it's been a favorite, and I'm very happy nowadays to have a really up-to-date copy, because I also got the upgrade prototype pack. So that aside, let's focus on the 2 modules, because if you're checking this video, of course you know what Pest is about. I'm speculating that you already enjoy the game and you want to know if this is something a bit more of the same, or if it really offers some characteristics, something differences with impact in gameplay. It really does in both of the modules. I have one of the 2 is more favorite than the other. That doesn't mean that I don't love both of them. I really like both of them and enjoy both of them, and I'll be playing both of them, but I really do prefer a bit more the Guildhall. Not that the mutagen is not interesting, it's extremely interesting and very different dynamic. It's just that I really like the Guildhall being populated with all these chairs, with the different healthy people that players are sending, and this variety of Guildhall cards is really powerful and really make a difference. On the other hand, with mutagens, you can score a lot of victory points, a lot of renown points, as the game calls them, once you get to eradicate a lot of clusters, and this is something you should be looking for. And also, it can create difficulties out of nowhere when cluster occurs and comes, and really brings more sick people on the board in some regions, some focus area of the game board of the map. Now, both of them are really interesting. Some cool things about Guildhall. Very interesting how the envoys move up, how you can gain victory points depending on your position from all your envoys from the Guildhalls. So this is a way of getting extreme amount of victory points if you manage to move several envoys up, even if you didn't play a lot of cards from their respective guilds. The cards are very unique. The Guildhall cards are interesting, difficult to play them because you need to prep the work. You need to move your envoy, you need to get healthy people on the different chairs on the specific guild so that you can gather tokens from that guild, and then you can spend them to play cards. And I also like the fact that you don't only need to have, most of the cases, a single token from one guild to play card. You need to have the predominant Guildhall token from the Guildhall that this affiliates to, but also sometimes you need to have another one. So you need to focus on different guilds, get the tokens so that you'll be able to play the cards that you have collected and gain a really powerful boost. Also, the victory points at the end is very interesting. It has a lot of dynamic. You really have a challenge and you're really biting your nails to find out who is going to win the game until the very end, because on top of the other sources of renown victory points, you have also the Guildhall now, and that really creates an interesting dynamic, and I really loved it and enjoyed it. Very unique, very different. I wanted to play many of the cards from the Guildhall because they have a lot of interesting cool perks, and I wanted to send my own healthy people on the Guildhall because essentially it gave me a thematic essence to the game, because I'm sending the health people. I managed to, you know, to take them under my protection and cure them, and maybe they're part of my faction now, and then I'm sending them to influence specific guilds and gain positions and therefore gain power within the guild and within the city itself. Really cool. But you still have to balance, because when you assign people, you can either assign healthy people to buildings and get to have productive buildings, or you get to assign them to the Guildhall. So you have to balance your priorities and choose carefully and wisely, because you need both. So you cannot really focus on one or the other if you're playing with the module Guildhall. On the other hand, the Mutagens module, very interesting. I think it gave a more thematic boost or tone or feeling to the plague idea, to the pest idea, because yes, it's pest, and it really spawns more centers of of disease and more sick people, and this mechanic that of the ever appearing clusters in different cities where there are more people are and there are more possibilities to have bursts of disease and sick people from pest, from plague, really gave a more thematic direction to the game. It was thematic before. I felt already, of course, that I was curing people, I was gathering, guaranteeing, putting them in quarantine, trying to cure them and get my production moving and my economy up. So I was having this feeling already, but now with the clusters, I really feel more that, the disease is there, the danger is there, and you can see, like in reality, we had with recent examples with the virus, etc., coronavirus, you had centers of heavily populated centers where they're really having a lot of sick people, and this really, in a way, gives this feeling, which is a more, I should say, realistic feeling to the theme and more true to the theme. Gameplay-wise, Mutagens is also interesting because you really have to chase eradicating those clusters, because the more you do, the more renown points you get, and you can gain a lot of renown points if you manage to, chase them, eradicate them, get there before your opponents, manage to be the Black Doctor who eradicates them and cleans them, and then keep them for yourself. Of course, it will draw some of your resources and your efforts and your actions if you try to do so, because they will be like chasing different sparks. I shouldn't say sparks, clusters of disease, but the opportunity to cure them and benefit from them. But it has a very nice dynamic sending you around the map on the different city centers. Of course, you know where it is. It cannot be anywhere. It has to be city center, because only the city centers can get a cluster. But also, from a problem point of view, when they burst, when you have the pest phase and you have the clusters, the new cluster appearing, you have more sick people around the clusters where they haven't been eradicated, and that could be a serious problem. And that's why there is also a variant where two Plague Doctors can combine the powers to cure, eradicate a cluster, because sometimes you just really want to get them out, because they make it difficult with more sick people to move because you don't have food, and to go from one place to the other. So that you need to be careful about that, and you need to balance it also carefully together with the rest of the players. Very interesting module also. So there you have it. These are both our modules. Extremely satisfying gameplay experience from both. Very high gameplay value. I would highly recommend trying them. If you liked Pest, you should definitely check them out. This is really valuable expansion, not just more of the same, not more. It could be just, more technology cards, more aid cards, more pest cards, It has very unique character. It has strong unique character and different directions depending on the module you have. And of course, you can combine them both. This is Guilds of Thokaia, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to add the link in the description of the video where you're going to find the crowdfunding campaigns. You can hit it and go for the last few days to try to get what's going on and all the stretch goals that have been unlocked, and to find out more about Pest and its expansion, Guilds of Thokaia. And thanks for watching.